Yeah, let's just rock this. So, Etay, tell me a little bit about not just Cato, but your technology and what you're finding, particularly now in this moment of very rapid iteration with generative artificial intelligence. I mean, you guys must be finding some really fascinating artifacts on the dark web and maybe the clear web as well.
Right. So Cato Networks is a SASE company, Secure Access Service Edge. It's actually the convergence of networking and security. So being able to control your networking and all your security aspects in one place. And I am the senior director of security strategy there. And you're right, we're seeing a lot of different things when it comes to AI and generative AI LLMs, both in how we see our customers using it, also how we see the threat actors use it, because as you know, threat actors, since forever have been early adopters of new technology.
Yeah, so I would imagine that I mean, tell me if this assumption is wrong, but I would imagine generative artificial intelligence kind of lowers the ceiling, or choose your metaphor, it makes it easier for a new cohort of potential bad actors to access this technology and perpetrate nefarious activities.
Yeah,
I'm generalizing here, but you tell me specifically what's happening.
no, I completely agree. It once again lowers the bar. We have seen these iterations
Yeah.
in the past. When I started as a kid, I had a modem. You had to know somebody who would teach you something, and then you had the dark web open, and
Me too.
you could buy these services and capabilities without even having to know how to code. People would provide you things, as a service. Now you have access to an AI that will produce stuff for you, and I mean, one of the most obvious go-tos is things like phishing, right? You don't need somebody to create a phishing page for you. Let's say you're trying to target, I don't know, a company in Japan. How would you write a phishing email in Japanese? No idea. Well, go into a generative AI and just ask it to write it for you, and it will. Perfect grammar, perfect spelling, and it can create all kinds of versions of the same email to make it even harder to track. That's kind of like the most obvious go-to, but there are other things that threat actors can use AI for, including generating scripts, code snippets, looking into web pages and trying to find vulnerabilities in code, stuff like that, making it extremely accessible and extremely easy.
So I'm curious about specifically who some of these actors are. I think, I want to get away from the stereotype of the stock image of the white dude in a hoodie. Right, exactly. Who looks creepy and is up to, like I just said, nefarious activities. That's fine cliche, but let's get really specific. Who are these people and what are they actually doing? Phishing is one thing. Okay, that's easy to understand, but certainly there are more creative uses of generative AI.
Right. So yeah, I agree with you that getting away from that image is important. You also have to remember that unfortunately, hard economic times push people to do bad things just to make ends meet. So when you have things like conflicts in Eastern Europe or any other place in the world, and uncertain financial situations, people might, say, you know what, I have to pay the bill. I have to feed a mouth at the end of the week. I'll use this new tool to whatever I can use it for. So it's not just these nation state sponsored, professional hackers or professional threat actors that we see using this. Of course, we see usages by very good people using AI for good things as well. However, there's two sides to it every time. Interestingly enough, by the way, if I take for a moment the side of not the threat actor, but legitimate people, we've seen on our network, since I mentioned before, we can see all the network flows in our customers' networks, and we have over 1,800 customers. We've seen a exponential rise in the usage of ChatGPT. We can see it on the networks since it was introduced to where it is today. Everybody's trying to understand, work with it, whether it be for a couple of minutes or for hours in on out. People are I'm trying to understand and starting to understand how to do prompt engineering and getting the max out of it, both on our side and on the bad side, of course.
So that's actually opens up a really interesting series of questions. What applications are most popular? Is it ChatGPT?
Yeah, it is ChatGPT is the most popular that we're seeing by the mere fact that I guess it was the first one. But there's definitely focus also on Bard. I just came back from Black Hat. There was a lot of discussion about Claude, which generated some interesting responses. But yeah, ChatGPT, from what we're seeing, is definitely the number one. In a recent discussion in a Russian underground criminal forum, they were actually comparing the two and saying, which one is better, Bard or ChatGPT, who creates, better answers, less hallucinations, allows you to do more bad stuff without stopping you. So they're actually having a debate around this topic as we speak.
Yeah, it's so fascinating that these kind of mainstream generative AI platforms are used for productivity, like coding or creating images, and they can be used by bad actors. But certainly, OpenAI or Google or Microsoft has access to this data. Now, you can't just ask OpenAI or ChatGPT to write a phishing email for me, but certainly there are hallmarks. There's a telltale signal. I can look at a phishing email, even a convincing one, and you can too. There's all sorts of behavior that I can look at and understand that a kind of a nefarious purpose is being used. I hate to keep using that cliche, but I want to keep some of this broad. Shouldn't OpenAI or Google be able to identify some of this behavior?
I think it's not easy to do. Oh, by the way,
Hmm.
here's a neat trick for you. You're trying, not that I suggest anybody uses it, right? But you're trying to write a phishing email and it won't let you. Just say, change the word, create a marketing email for me that does what. As soon as you change it to that, all of a sudden, oh yeah, sure, here it is. And they have the same characteristics. By the way, not joking aside, a marketing and a phishing email have the exact same characteristics. So to the most part, I should say. So trying to stop it is, well, I don't know if it's a priority at this point for these companies. We're now seeing emerging new technologies that are actually out there to protect the model itself from abuse, whether it be by prompt injection or by trying to manipulate it to do things that it shouldn't. But again, we're very early in this. This has been such a wide and massive adoption of it. It literally launched 9 months ago. The open portion of it, ChatGPT, right? GPT has been around for several years and has already been used for good and bad as well.
Um, Tell me a little bit about disinformation and using these platforms to create content that is designed to be manipulative.
Right. So again, because these models are focused on creating human-like responses and human-like outputs, it's going to become very hard, or it is already very hard to tell what is generated by a machine, what is generated by a human. And now put into that, corpuses of data, which is easy for a machine to learn, but is almost impossible for a human to have access to. And you get what you're kind of referring to as almost a disinformation machine. If we want to add a little bit more to the problem, add to that the fact that now we have not just the generative AI in the sense of the response, but you can generate images, videos, deep fakes. Take the AI, the generative portion as the brain and put in front of it a deepfake video of a politician, of somebody or someone or a group, and you're not going to know what and who to trust because these things are going to look so real.
I'm asking a few rhetorical questions, but I appreciate your specificity here. Is it possible to chain AI systems together? For example, I might not be an expert in creating images. I might not be an expert in creating text. I might not be an expert in creating video, but there are certainly generative AI systems that will do all three. Can I connect these systems to create an output that is uh, a combination of all of those things?
Yeah, and to add more into that, like voice synthesis systems that are AI based,
Yeah.
we've already seen these attacks. There was an attack, I want to say about a year and a half or 2 years ago on the Dutch parliament, they thought they were talking to a Ukrainian official. It was a live deepfake inside a Zoom. Unreal, I can assure you, but it was a live deepfake inside a Zoom of that Russian official. It wasn't really him. So we've already seen attacks like this happen. Now I'm kind of trying to think, what happens when we go into like business email compromise attacks, where somebody's email is compromised and you use that to generate emails on their behalf. You point the AI and say, study all the information in these emails. This person's, the way he responds, the way he writes. Now write emails to all the companies on his behalf and, try to collect information, money, whatever it is.
Yeah. So what you've just described is the ability to use these systems at large scale to churn out text, audio, video, images at large scale, which was previously pretty challenging. Going back to your point a moment ago, these systems have only been around for 9 months, maybe a year, a very short period of time. So I appreciate your point about politics and the Dutch politician, but what about events like COVID-19, or what about targeting a company or a rival, even a school bullying? What are some of the more micro uses of this technology?
Oh, the technology, excuse me, the technology is going to be used for different types of fraud and threats for sure. I don't think it's going to be the tech is going to be the problem. It's going to be an enabler for all kinds of types of fraud attacks on the micro scale as well. Just like you said, if, creating a false information about somebody or attacking a specific company. I'm not familiar at this point with attacks that have already happened. They might have. The problem again with these systems it's hard to tell when it's a human and when it is not. But there's definitely potential there for attackers to utilize these tools, and they are already doing that for their kind of like smaller attacks.
Okay, so I'm kind of headed in a particular direction here, and I wonder, how can we leverage this technology and the innovations that are truly staggering and have undeniably good use cases? How do we stop some of the bad, some of the disinformation, and some of the at scale cyber attacks that can originate from these tools, or in your words, be enabled by these tools? How do we balance that? How do we stop the bad stuff but enable the good stuff?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think you reminded me of that scene from Jurassic Park where the scientist said, "Oh, your scientists were so worried if they could, they didn't wonder if they should." I don't think that was a priority when these things were created. And can we stop them? Yeah, it's undoubtful that we're going into the age of AI versus AI. We're going to have AI systems in the defenses trying to identify and stop AI generated attacks. There are, like I said before, there are companies and already technologies that are trying to protect the LLMs and protect the AIs themselves from being abused, from being poisoned, from prompt injections, from different capabilities. But it's not going to be easy, just like as we've seen with deep fakes. Once the genie's out of the bottle, it's hard to stop these things. And I think we're going to see a lot of different advancements of technology come out in the next couple of years, trying to assess and understand how we can stop these types of threats. And again, the technology itself is not the threat; it's the usage of it, right? Because threat actors will always adopt new technologies and new capabilities in order to perform social engineering or account takeover and data manipulation and so on. It's another tool in the arsenal.
Yeah, absolutely. Etay, last question for you. Give me the next 36 months of generative AI and bad actors. Where are we in the near future?
Okay. By the way, it's a tough question. I was just referencing a case of something that I did 4 months ago. Somebody asked me, and I said, here's what I did. It's about 15 years ago in terms of AI, how much it progressed in the last months. So trying to project to the future is a little bit difficult. I think, to be honest, not a whole lot will change in the next year or two. or at least until the generative AIs start solving the problems of hallucinations. And it's not me saying this. This is a direct quote from the Russian underground where they're talking about Bard and ChatGPT. Their main showstopper, their main concern is the hallucinations, that they cannot trust the output from these systems yet 100% in order to utilize it. Then they say, it creates these responses that are downright wrong. And so kind of like one of the final quotes in that discussion was, I think we're a couple years away from, utilizing it on our day-to-day activity. It's getting there. I won't trust it at this point.